Hello everyone and welcome to another Playopolis board game review. This time of
Ether Wars. Ether Wars.
Ether Wars. It's a game about Ether mostly.
Yes.
It's a Kickstarter from a couple of years back, Spanish developers. They raised just about enough to actually make the game, and now it is actually available to play, to buy in the UK.
Yes, so Rob said this game is about ether, and that's because ether is this precious mineral resource which everyone in the galaxy is trying to get their hands on. And as a result, there's this huge tournament to determine who is going to get their hands on the precious ether.
Yeah, and to do that, you're going to be fighting, stealing...
Rolling some dice.
Rolling a lot of dice.
Rolling a lot of dice, yes.
There's some... the game sells itself with some area control stuff. There is a lot of different strategies that you can go about getting this big pot.
Exactly, and now Rob is going to sort of teach you through the basics of how to play Ether Wars.
So in Ether Wars, players are competing to gather a certain amount of ether from this central area. Players start the game with 20 protein, which is the game's money, a hero dice and 5 unit dice. They also start with a number of favour cards which essentially work as one-off special powers. Every turn, players will draw an event card which may change the rules for that round only and reinforce themselves with 2 protein and a unit dice. Every turn you can also hire mercenary dice using your own resources. These are powerful ability dice that last for that round and can do anything from instant kill other units to letting you re-roll any of your own dice. After this, players take turns to place their dice around this main board. Players can choose to gain money or gain any of the 3 coloured resources of plasma, crystals and coltan. They can also choose to visit a market or a cloning area where they can buy new units. Or you can attack and defend a player silo. Placing dice here allows you to attack players directly and steal the resources they've gathered. Finally, players can enter the main ether area here where they will fight for the ability to keep an ether. Most of the places on the board have a limit on how many dice that you can place in each area, marked by these face symbols. So once all the dice have been placed, any player can spend the orange coltan resource to move their dice to any other legal position on the board. Then you begin the resolution phase where all players will resolve their dice. In these central areas it means rolling the dice and gaining resources. In the market or the cloning area, you'll take market or cloning actions, and the amount of dice and the number of the dice doesn't matter in these areas. In any area where a hero dice has been used, it will either force combat, such in the resource areas, or stop any other players taking an action, such as in the market or cloning area. Any dice in the main ether arena have to fight. The winner gains an ether, but if they have 2 of the crystal resources, they'll gain an extra ether as well. Fighting in the game works very simply. Players roll the dice that they are using in the fight and you compare the black pips on each other's dice. The winner is the person with the most filled in pips across all dice. At the end of each turn, all players pay 1 protein back to the bank for each unit dice that is still in their army. And finally, when you gain enough of the ether in your own personal silo, then you win the game.
So that was how you play Ether Wars. Rob, what did you think of the game?
Okay, so lots to say, I guess. The start and the main takeaway that I took from just leaving the room, finishing the game for the first and the second playthroughs, you have a lot of player interaction.
Yeah.
There is a ton of times when you are either attacking someone, defending someone, because the placement requires you to only have a certain amount of people in a certain place. Every sort of dice is an important factor in making sure that you don't do stuff even in the wrong order.
Yeah.
Where you try to get money. You know you need money, but if you don't get the money quick enough, it all runs out.
There's a lot of sneaky theft going on. You're going to be taking each other's resources.
Okay, you still have to roll the dice. Why don't you roll the dice first and see what happens.
This is to take your things.
This is to take my things. So that's a solid
2.
So you can take 1 money.
There you go, sir. Enjoy.
Have a good time. If you needed to borrow money, Jamie, you could have just asked me.
I went pretty hardcore on that 1 money.
You have to buy the army up as well and then maintain it with the same money that you also need to do other things with. So you end up having a bigger army and then realising you've run out of money.
Yes.
So then having to go back and try to get money. And when you're getting money, you're not getting ether.
Exactly, because there's no point in having all these resources but having no army to sort of continue the fight.
Yeah. And it's all those little bits of balancing that makes the game fun. Also, one of the main mechanics is these, what they call the mercenary.
The mercenary dice, yes. So they play quite a big role in the fact that they're going to give you these big, beefy sort of dice that are going to get huge numbers if you roll correctly, as opposed to the 1, 2, 3s that you might get on a smaller dice.
Yeah, we had quite a few times where we didn't use them very well. They are powerful. The reason I like the mechanic, first of all, when you buy them, you have to buy them with the set resources that you have, so everything ties into each other. And then when you get a choice, you're still going around in turns picking the mercenaries, so you still have to have turn order as a consideration, what you want, but also what everyone else wants.
This is very much, in case you hadn't guessed, a take that style game, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's very aggressive straight up, and you can't sort of do your own thing. There isn't really that sort of element of engine building at all.
I tried it for sure. Like, I tried to just be market focused. I had loads of cash, but all my stuff kept getting stolen.
Yeah.
And the only way to retaliate was to steal your stuff back.
Yeah, at any point you can steal. The silos in the game are just all of your stuff, and it's all there.
And it's all on display.
Yeah.
Which is quite important. You're not like holding your cards to your chest in any way.
Stack them. You can stack them and make them look like less, but generally speaking, you do know what everyone has.
Yeah.
She'll go again, Jamie.
I know.
Just like giving up. Oh.
What?
What's your problem?
There's no problem.
There is a problem.
It's no problem.
there
We're
is
all
a
friends
big-
here.
Squarey problem.
It's actually quite a little problem.
I don't see any problem.
It works really well from a flow perspective as well. The first game we did get into, obviously learning as well, it did feel draggy.
Yes.
The second time, and from then, you have, once you get into those phases and running through them, an actual turn is fast.
It is.
Loads
yeah,
of
for
dice,
sure.
loads of units.
There's very little downtime between players.
No.
Because you're constantly having different phases to sort of work on.
Yeah, you resolve everything as one player, but normally that means you're resolving other people's as well because you're doing the combat, so you never feel like stuff's just happening around you, which is really, really helpful, considering that it is a game with 7 phases and multiple actions and all those different things that you can do to be fast. I would say that the overall length was, it just felt always a bit too long.
We tended to get into sort of stalemate situations where we were all very close to winning, and we just kept sabotaging each other just enough that we'd never get over the finish line.
I don't want you to do that because it's annoying. Well, don't you want me to win, Jamie?
No, I would like to win. With my 0 ether.
Yeah, good luck.
You've got loads of dice, Jamie. You were ruining. It was such a happy turn for me.
I have never had a happy turn.
Yeah, but that's your fault. You make your own destiny, man.
There's no point you defending because I'm just
I'm
going to...
being attacked on both fronts.
How are you being attacked there? That's
You
Rebecca
attacked
defending.
him. Not quite the same.
It's definitely the
They
same.
come into my house, start stabbing me, like, stop attacking me!
Okay, fair enough.
So those are all of the sort of big positive points.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there are quite a few points to raise about the rest of the game.
Yeah.
Let's talk mechanically first. Did you have anything you wanted to bring up sort of from a mechanical perspective? I have a few.
I felt that, so we've mentioned the mercenary dice, and I think they are so important to the game, and they actually, in a way, are more significant than some of the resources. And that's a problem, because out of, is it 4 resources you can invest in?
Including money, yeah.
Yes, so there's 4 resources you can invest in. In our games, there was 2 that we really didn't touch, and when we did have them, we were spending them to get mercenaries, and that's not really what they're for, is it?
Yeah, that's a core balance problem that I have with this game. The mercenary dice are very powerful, and they are very fun to use, and they are cool to use, and they're not too annoying to be used on you.
No.
So they're great, but you buy them with the purple and the orange resources, which are otherwise meant to be used for stopping you from dying, stopping dice from dying, or moving dice after you place them. And we weren't using those 2 mechanics nearly ever.
We weren't, no.
Because there just never seemed like a reason for any of us in any game to really bother. You don't get enough of them to make it really useful. The mercenaries need to use them to buy the dice, and you only need to use 1 money on top of that, so they're not expensive otherwise. So you end up thinking, okay, I can save a unit from death maybe if I die, which is not always going to happen, or I can get this dice which is pretty much going to guarantee to kill you at least 1 or 2 of your units.
Yeah, my sort of race I was playing was humans, and their ability, or one of their abilities, sorry, was that I could have 2 mercenaries on a turn. And that was really powerful, wasn't
Yeah,
it? I felt it was such an advantage, especially when you're battling for the limited places available in the ether zone.
Yes, it just gives you more options, which
Yeah.
normally means a lot bigger chance of victory. There's other balance problems. Like, it's tough to review balance problems because no matter how many times you play a game, you really got to play like 30, 40 times, I think, to really say this is completely unbalanced.
Yeah.
One thing we would say, though, we play a lot of board games. Normally, we give the game the benefit of the doubt, and we try to work out where the balance might come into play. With the different races and their abilities in Ether Wars, it felt like not only were they sort of not quite balanced between each other, but they weren't. There were some that, for your player, for your race, that just seemed objectively better.
Yeah, so you had
use.
a really, really strong race in that you were, so crystals are important for gaining ether. They sort of
Double it.
multiply your time, or the time that it's taken to create ether. And you were getting 2 crystals around? Was
Yeah,
it?
instead of reinforcing and getting a little bit of money and a unit, I was getting the money again and 2 crystals, which are worth like 10 or like 8 money anyway.
Yeah, meanwhile, I was dedicating whole rounds just to securing 1 crystal.
Yeah,
And that was wasting all of my dice, whereas Rob still obviously had his turns to do what he wanted to do to progress.
Yeah, and then we had Rebecca, who was playing with us, and Dan, who played a game as well,
Yeah.
that had a couple that were just super situational. And this thing would be good, but maybe it will happen, versus this thing, which will definitely happen and will be awesome. It meant that, like, with the 4 different powers you get, I felt like 2 were useful and 2 were not in literally every situation. Were they more powerful than each other? We can't really say, but it definitely felt like that was a balance issue.
You literally used it on him before.
I'm going to go for Rob.
Why?
Because
Look at her face!
I think you're more likely to win this than Rebecca.
Oh, this one?
Yes. Which would then put you in an advantage. So I need
Put
to...
me
Yeah.
to draw.
Good move, Jamie.
Thank you. Your turn.
Oh, prick.
I think if we're talking about criticisms of this game, we're also going to have to sadly talk about component quality. Would you agree?
Yeah, I'd say that's probably the balance stuff is like here, and I guess the component quality for me is because it's quite expensive as well.
Yeah.
It's £50.
It doesn't feel like a £50 game. The board is just... It's just a sticker, isn't it, on a
It's
board?
a sticker on the board.
And our copy arrived with bits peeling away at the corner.
Yeah.
Which wasn't great, was it? That's not a good first impression.
No, very, very shiny cards.
Yeah.
All miniature cards, not nice to hold at all.
In fact, everything in the game feels a little bit too small.
Yeah.
Because these sort of, the beefy monster dice that you get, they're just normal sized dice.
You end
as
up-
opposed to the tiny dice you get for everyone else in your team.
You end up thinking the hero dice are large.
It does trick you a little bit, yeah.
But no, they are just regular dice, and you're using these tiny dice. In a dice rolling game, dice rolling is kind of a kinetic, fun thing to do, and it kind of gets ruined when you're using these little tiny, silly dice.
I think I compared it to the sort of, this goes for the cards as well, it's like the sort of thing you get in a Christmas cracker. It's
Yeah.
just a bit too small. It doesn't feel like an item of quality.
That's what
What
it
do you
feels
say?
like. And might be a crazy theory.
Okay.
It feels like a game that was just scraping by on its Kickstarter, that was probably hoping that its stretch goals would come through,
Yeah.
and its stretch goals were going to be like proper like quartz style 3D ether and stuff, it's rather than just the flat tokens for everything. So that's, I think, where things went bad for that. And I guess if you could have turned the game around to being a 30 quid game, a lot of those problems would go away. But for the amount of money and what you get and the quality of what you get, it just doesn't come together.
Yeah.
And it does affect the game. Jamie is a man who makes a lot of clumsy, weird, strange movements.
I'm a clumsy person, yes.
But you were throwing this game around a lot more than normal games.
Yeah, and it's also worth saying, I'm not the biggest person in the world, but I was finding things small. I don't have big hands, but like, the dice kept... Yeah.
Yeah, it just doesn't feel nice. And it's a board game, so it should.
And I just want to roll for orange. Hey, one orange.
Okay.
Literally.
Literally.
It's getting a bit excitable.
I
The
can't...
game's
He's
nearly
got-
ending.
He's got actual victory points after an hour and 15 minutes.
Oh dear.
I was going to write General Jamie-ness.
General Jamie reporting for
But it's worth saying that it is a fun game to play. And we both enjoyed the playthroughs that we did of it.
Yeah.
I felt like there was strategies that I could develop. There was interesting interactions with other players, but
it's just not what we would consider to be a Play Up List favourite.
it's not a Play Up List favourite.
When we say favourites, they're really games that we recommend to most people with maybe a couple of caveats. With this game, it's harder to, with all the amazing games out there in this genre, to say this is definitely one to pick up. It's still good. If what we've said about the positives doesn't completely destroy all the stuff we've been saying about the quality of it.
You could very well enjoy this game.
Yeah, especially if you're not bothered too much about tiny dice, tiny cards, and a slightly cheaper feel to your game. It's still good, it's still fun. I think we obviously filmed the footage for this review, and a lot of it is us joking and laughing
Having
and
a good time. Yeah.
It is not a bad game at all, it's just not a great game.
So thank you very much for watching this review. As always, please do like, comment, and subscribe. It actually does help. It really, really does help.
It does help. We would like some more subscribers so that we can keep making this content and not do the other boring stuff that we have to do.
Do let us know what you think of the videos so far. We're really trying to put a bit of polish and finesse into these videos.
Yep.
And yeah, until the next time, bye-bye.
Goodbye.